Hi guys, welcome to the second half of Collab Cloud Day 5. Today is a Thursday, and we have the amazing Lalita Tharani with us from Collaborative Architecture. And today is a special day because we are going to talk about a very, very, very coveted project that they have recently bagged. The Cooper Hewitt Smithsonian Museum, as you already know, is one of the most important design museums in the world. In the past, they have curated some of the most defining exhibitions that helped shape the discourse and narrative of architecture and design. And I am going to head over the mic to Lalita to describe this entire process in detail. Lalita, welcome.
Hi guys,
Hi, it's wonderful to have you here today. And
wonderful to
I
be
would
here today.
So I would like you to describe the project, the entire process, because a lot of people would be interested in knowing, how firms can actually reach to be a part of international competitions as well.
Sure. Well, it's a very weird way that we actually, it's kind of a comic way that we got into this competition because the initial thing was that we were organizing a particular, um, conference, an event, and that's the time probably there was the other competition that happened along with the Peace Museum was happening. So that is what you see over there is the Peace Pavilion. What you see, the ring, and you see the dome over there is a part. The entirety is the Peace Pavilion, and the dome is kind of inspired from the stupa, because it's Buddha, the peace, and so from that is where we got the inspiration for the dome, and it kind of mimics the stupa. The ring came in wherein we kind of tried to. That's where the peace. The peacekeeping mission Matthias are name of the Matthias are engraved on that particular ring. So that's where the that becomes a part of the peace pavilion. So this was the entry point of the museum. You could go to the next slide, please. Ritika, can you go to the next slide, please? Okay, so what you see on the top is can you see that ring over there? So that in the white model that you can see, so that ring and the dome became the part of the part of the peace pavilion as at the entry of the museum. And what we also did with the museum was, see, normally any of the public spaces, museums and all, they're open from about 9 to 5, and the public is kind of restricted to enter these areas post those hours. So what we thought was, let's let the museum play a very important role also in the urban space, and let's kind of give the space back to the public to let them occupy the space as much as possible. So unlike what is currently happening with the Central Vista, where where the essential public space is being taken away, our museum played a completely opposite role to that. What we did was, if you see the site, that is the boundary line that you can see outside. So what we did was we pushed back from the boundary line. We gave that space to the public, and we created the front area. What we can see, I wish I had the screen so I could point it out. But yeah, what you see in the front area is the entire length at the along with the entry, and the entire front length is what we created, a place where people could jog and hang around and occupy that space from early morning hours to late night hours. Then and also we created other places which the public could occupy, which I will show you in the other timeline, which will come in the next further slides. So what you are seeing over here is the front. This is in the main area, which is the Princess Park, pretty close to the Rashtrapati Bhavan, and so we also, of course, what you see, the height limitations, if you see it's almost a flattish kind of a thing, is purely because we had a height restriction over there and we could not go above the height of the Rashtrapati Bhavan. So could you go to the next slide, please? Okay, so what happened with the design of the entire museum was, of course, a good museum always has uh, galleries which are light filled galleries and which are dark spaces, to have the right kind of balances for the kind of displays that need to be created inside. So what you see, the white boxes in the front, are all the light filled galleries which were double and triple volume in certain parts of it. And what you see, the back portion, that is a wooden area, is the part which is the black box, what we called as the black box, which was the darker part of the gallery. Next slide, please. Okay, so again, this is the model of the museum, again showing on the complete left-hand side, as you can see, is a longish structure which is extending, which was a part of the library, which had restaurants, library, an amphitheater, and the viewing gallery. So that area also was a part which was activated even beyond the museum hours. Next slide, please. On the so what you can see below is the the front facade, and of course, the since this wasn't, it's in the thick of Luton's Delhi, and Luton's Delhi has a complete language of its architecture around, including the sandstone on the buildings and things. So we kind of picked up the cues from that, even though the architecture was not mimicking the Luton's architecture, but the materiality was picked up from there. So what you can see, the yellow aspect of the light filled galleries, what you can see is again clad with the yellow sandstone over there, and what you see as the red is the cotton steel that we had used. Steel, of course, we chose that purely, again, one, for the reason it ages and it tells a story with time, as it ages, so it changes, and it speaks about how the time has passed. So that was one aspect of it. Second, of course, because it was about the services, the army and navy, so steel kind of has that rugged effect, so that was another reason of choosing that steel over there. Next slide, please. Sorry, I will want to explain the top slide that is there. As you can see, no, 1 second, Ritika, just stay on this slide, please. So I don't know how clear it is on this one. Again, if you can see the top right hand top image, which shows four parts of that, four different aspects of that model. Whatever green that you see, that highlighted in the particular model, is the timeline. As you can see, I don't know how clear is the time for the hours shown over there. So basically, the topmost had, where the entire front area, as I told you, was given away to the public, and the front area was activated from early morning hours, say maybe from 5, 6 o'clock onwards till 9 o'clock, and in fact throughout the day it could be utilized, till the late hours. When what you see, the second part of the model that you can see, the entire thing is green, is because the entire area, including the front, the entry, the museum, and the library, and all those other zones was also going to be activated from 9 o'clock to 5 o'clock. And this the third one that you see is once the museum hours are over, say by about 5 p.m. Then the front zone, that is the Peace Pavilion, is still going to be activated. People should be able to access that area also post that till about 7:38, and also the front area, of course, and the restaurant and the other zones also. What happens after about 7:38 is that the amphitheater, the restaurant, the libraries are still activated till late night hours, say about till about 1 a.m. in the night. The front area, if you can see outside the Peace Pavilion, even that area can be activated during that hour. So basically, the entire idea was to make sure that it kind of it's a very activated urban space rather than just one more monument, which one more space which is accessible only at certain hours and then locked up. You could see the philosophy of nonviolence, which was an integral part of the nation and its democracy, which was given prominence as a display over there. And as you can see that these were the, I don't know how clear it is, the dots. But if you see the map below, where there are red and black dots, so the black dots indicate the peacekeeping missions. The red dots indicate the military engagements that were there, but the black dot is what indicates our peacekeeping mission, which the country has been a part of and participated over the years, which is again mentioned in the list in the black dots. In 1961, we were, annexation, which was annexation of Portuguese India. Again in 1971, Operation Cactus Lily. In 1771, again Battle of Longueval, and 1984 we had Operation Meghdut, and 1999 Battle of Tolo Tololing. Okay, and so that was it, and this is how the entire display uh, was then curated. But nonetheless, and I would like to tell, if anybody wants to know more about the project, it will soon be up on our website. Our website is completely being rethrashed, and soon we will have this project completely on our website, so they could go through it and understand what they have to about the project and approach us further if they want any details further to that. So that's what.
Perfect. Thank you, Lalita. It was great to have you here. Guys,
Thank
stay
you so
tuned
much.
for the next segment. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Guys, stay tuned for the next section, which is about a brand that is very close to my heart because I founded it. So, we are going to showcase our latest collection of some really, really amazing paintings by some really famous artists. So, if you guys can just wait for 5 minutes, we'll go backstage, refresh, get our coffees, and see you.